All right, hi guys. So we are in the last couple of weeks of the semester, and you have one more assignment left. So your last assignment is going to be due on April 27th. Keep that in mind. Uh, I would say if you have any questions, if you need to meet or anything like that, please contact me and we can set up a time to meet over Zoom, or we can set up a time to email back and forth or even chat. Anything you need. This is a research paper. It was supposed to be a presentation, but given our current issues not being in the classroom, you're not going to give a presentation. You're going to write a 4 to 5 page research paper and have all of the standards of research papers in there. I will focus next week's lesson on how to write a standard research paper for you, because this is the last of our content. So just follow along with all of this cultural analysis for this week. Next week, we'll go over how to write a research paper all week. You can combine that with your standard essay writing lectures from last week, and then you should really be set to tackle your research paper. I will give you the last full week of class to simply answer discussion questions, but I'm not going to provide any major reading, okay, because I want you to focus on writing this paper. All right, that said, we are going to be talking about Hofstede's cultural dimensions. And there's plenty of stuff on Moodle for you to look at. Follow the days, but we'll always try and get it done by Friday. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go over a PowerPoint about this. And hold on just a second. Okay, so as you see here, you have this guy in the top right-hand corner. This is Hofstede. You'll meet him in subsequent videos in addition to the one this week. I will post videos of him talking about his own theory because I think that's really valuable. But what he basically did here is he divided culture into different groups, right? So you see the definition here: culture as the collective programming of the mind, distinguishing the members of one group or category of people from others. So we're looking at different groups of people, but we're looking at them in different cultures. So those of you from China, Taiwan, Thailand, wherever, each of those countries or regions has their own dynamics, which is different. Sometimes we even go broader and we talk about East versus West, and you'll see that in your readings and videos for this week. So these are the 6 dimensions of national cultures. Each country has one of these that he says exists, okay? So you have power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity, femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, short-term normative, and indulgence versus restraint. The last 2 are fairly modern. The rest of them have been around for quite some time. So what is power distancing? It's exactly this. Okay, so this is talking about where less powerful members of society accept and expect that power will be distributed unequally. Okay, so the real question here is, what does a society do when there's inequality in the system? Okay, if you live in a country that is considered high power distance, all right, where this means there's a hierarchical order where everybody has a place and there doesn't need to be a justification for that place. You are where you are, okay? When you live in a low power distance, everybody's trying to equalize. Everybody wants equal power. And if there's inequalities, it makes people angry. So if you think about the United States, for example, we would probably be considered lower power by definition, because people are always struggling for equality, okay? So let's look at high versus low power. These are the things that you would look at when you figure out what country belongs where, all right? In a high power country, inequality is a normal part of society, right? Autocratic leadership is actually pretty normal as well. Some people might argue that is where the United States is headed, where inequality is normal and we have an autocratic leader. Deciding what is good and evil depends on who has power. Again, another feature that the United States is starting to acquire, okay? Children learn respect. Societies prefer a centralization of power. They don't like it distributed evenly. People that are subordinates or lower than you, they do as they're told. Like, think employer, employee, they do as they're told. Subordinates are blamed for the mistakes of their superiors too. There's more income inequality, and it's mostly a lower class of people. I think you could probably also say higher power societies, like Iran, North Korea. That's how you can remember them. They would be by definition high power societies. However, again, you could make the argument the United States is headed in that direction. A lower power society is where inequality is considered wrong and it should be reduced if and when it's possible. We have a democratic leadership in a low power society. We don't really have that anymore in the United States. That's why I'm saying you have to start thinking about it as a higher power country now. Everyone from top to bottom follows the same laws. Again, not happening right now in the United States. By definition, the United States is considered low power, but that definition is changing due to who we have at the top of our country, who's changing into a higher power country, okay? Children learn independence. Societies prefer decentralization, meaning like in the United States, we have 3 branches of government. They're all co-equal branches, okay? That's what we mean by decentralization. It's not the president that has full control over everything. However, again, that is where we are headed. Okay, subordinates expect to be consulted. So they don't expect to be blamed for problems, but when you have like a staff of people, you would ask them their opinions on things, okay? The system gets blamed for the mistakes, not necessarily the people. It's not people, it's the system's fault. Like right now, with everything that's happening in the States, they're blaming bureaucracy. And that just means red tape, which means that you have the system that is preventing people from getting help, which may or may not be true depending on who you're looking at. There's less income inequality in low power countries. Not at all true in this one. And then it's the mostly middle class people. Again, not at all true anymore in this country. But I want you to think about where you are from and what power distance your country falls under. Because again, you can, as countries get older, leaderships change. These things change, as you've seen in the last 3 or 4 years in the United States. We went from predominantly low power to now I would say we're predominantly high power, okay? So you can make the argument, and I'm just demonstrating how you can make that argument. Also, individualism versus collectivism, all right? So this is pretty big right now, and I would tell you that the East is collectivist. Eastern region of the world is collectivist. The West is individualist, which is why we don't wear masks around this country. We're very individualist, self-serving. Nobody really cares about protecting other people, right? People are starting to now because the government's sort of telling them and they're scared and they're trying to gain some control. But by definition, the United States and most of Europe would be considered individualist, not collectivist. Italy is the only country in Europe, I believe, that is considered collectivist, along with most of the East, okay? So individualist, it's loosely knit. You take care of yourself, your immediate family, that's it. In collectivist societies, you have a tightly knit society where you expect to be a member of this group, you look after other people, that type of thing. It's loyalty to the people, not to yourself. And that's the difference between the two, okay? The comparison. Individualists think I. It's always about I. What can I do for me? Not for you, but for me, okay? We get classified by our individual characteristics, not by our group characteristics. Our tasks comes first. It's not our relationship. It's what do we have to do? We have low context communication, meaning we say what we mean, okay? High context means you read between the lines. You hear what's not necessarily said, but it's still said, it's implied. You have self-actualization. That's an ultimate goal. In the United States, that means the American dream, right? Wealthier countries tend to be more individualistic. That's just a fact. Poorer countries tend to be more community-oriented. There's more press freedom in a country that's individualistic versus collectivistic, okay? There's also higher divorce rates and a faster pace of life in individualist countries. Think New York City, think 50% divorce rate in the United States. All right. So you see how everything that falls under individualism winds up being the opposite if you live in a collectivist country. Okay. We also have masculinity versus femininity. Please don't confuse that with male and female. It doesn't mean that. It means that masculinity is representing this preference for achievement, heroism, assertiveness, material awards, okay? So in these masculine countries, you do have a difference between gender roles, and they're more rigid, they're not flexible. Women can't do certain things. If you think about Saudi Arabia, for example, women cannot drive. That's a very masculine-oriented country where the gender roles never change. Women are subordinate to the men. It just doesn't change. When you have a femininity country, that's when you're dealing with people that are more cooperative. It's modest. You care for the weak. There's a quality of life involved here. And women can do a lot of the same things that men can do, if not everything. Okay. So don't think of it as male versus female. Just think of it as literally those adjectives: assertive versus not assertive, modest versus heroic, that type of thing. Okay, so again, think about where you come from. Where do you fall? Where does your country fall? Masculine versus feminine. The comparison here are the checklists that you would go down. If you're in a masculine country, it's more tough, it's logical, it's aggressive, it's worldly. People are more dizzy. Girls cry, but boys should not. Boys fight, but girls should not. Okay. There's more illiteracy. There's a lot of people that are very, very poor. There's not a lot of help or aid to the poor people. Poverty is blamed on laziness, okay? Only men shop in the market. So only men go to the grocery stores. Women don't do that. Salary is very important. And there tends to be shorter vacations. You see, when you deal with a feminine country in this respect, you have both boys and girls can cry, but neither of them should fight, okay? There's less illiteracy. There's a lot of people that are not poor. You help the poor more. Poverty is just blamed on bad luck. Anybody can go to the market, and then there's longer vacations. The United States does not fall clearly in either of these categories, if that's what you're wondering. You have components of both, okay? Think about why that is, and then make an argument for it. That's going to be your discussion for this week, is where do you think the United States falls? Or do you think it's somewhere in the middle? I would argue it's somewhere in the middle for a lot of reasons, okay? Also, think about where your country falls. Why does it fall there, okay? Most of Western Europe is a femininity type of society, by the way, if you've ever been there. All right, you have uncertainty avoidance. This is not risk avoidance, okay? This is just this area where members of society don't feel comfortable when things are not clear, okay? Like countries that have a strong score on this scale, you have very rigid codes of belief, behavior. They're very intolerant of anything that's different, okay? When you're weak on this scale, however, you have a more relaxed attitude, okay? It's not all about beliefs. You are open to other ideas. Okay. The comparison here is exactly this, right? There's more stress and anxiety in a strong UAI country. Feeling what is different is dangerous, okay? You adopt things rather slowly or carefully. People stay in the same job as long as they can avoid that uncertainty. People drive faster, they drink more, they always carry an ID card. Wealthy countries tend to be perceived as being more corrupt. There's cleanliness, there's purity. That's all important in marketing, okay? When you have a weak UAI system, there's less stress, there's less anxiety, it takes less time to adopt. People can easily change jobs. There's more tolerance towards people that are different. They drive more slowly, they're less alcoholic, they don't necessarily have to carry an ID card. All right, so I would say think the Scandinavian countries like Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, those countries would be a weak UAI index, okay? Then you have your long-term orientation versus short-term, okay? Those with long-term, those with If you have a culture that's very high on this, you're more pragmatic, okay? If you're short term, you prefer tradition and norms. And anything that changes in the world is suspect. And you see your checklist for each, okay? So when you score high in the long term, then you learn from other countries. Your traditions can be changed, right? When you're short term, they can't be changed. You have your own country. You like quick results. You prefer shares and mutual funds. There's no economic development really of poor countries, okay? So keep those in mind. And then you have your indulgence versus restraints. Indulgence means that you can enjoy life, you can have fun. When you score high in the restraint area, that you don't really have a lot of fun. It's very, very strict. I think Pakistan, think Russia, think again North Korea, for lack of a better way of putting it. Here's your comparison. So one's healthier and happier. One has a better work ethic. Well, not maybe not better, but a stronger one. One's more leisurely, one's optimistic, one's pessimistic. Meaning optimistic means you can see the good in things. Pessimistic means you're very negative. Okay? Extroverted meaning social. Introverted, you're quiet, you're shy, you like to be alone. Okay? So there's lower crime, but more police in a restraint country. There's lower birth rates, even in educated populations. There's less fat people in the wealthier countries that score high in restraint. Okay, so the United States is probably a more indulgent country than most. All right. If you come from the East, like most of you, if not all of you do, you're probably coming from countries that are more restraining than indulgent. That's not to say you can't think of things that are indulgent from home, but that's saying, what are you checking off the most in this list? If you check off more than half of these things as being true in your country, then that is where your country is scoring high. Okay, and that's it for today. I'm going to post this so you'll see it. If you have questions about it, let me know. But that's your cultural dimensional theory in a nutshell. And I'm then going to post more videos next week that you can watch about Hofstede and what he says about each of these categories, because I think it can help you quite a bit with your research project, which, by the way, is on cultural dimensions. I have opened it for you. You can check it out and let me know if you have questions about it. Don't feel like you need to have it done right away. Again, you have several weeks. So just be aware of that. That's it. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And if you have questions or worries, let me know. All right, that's it for this week.